Our next speaker is Dr. Logan Hampton. Logan Hampton was named the 10th president of Lane College by the Lane College Board of Trustees on June 12, 2014. Dr. Hampton earned a doctorate in higher education from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, a master's degree in student personnel services from Northwestern State University in Natchitoches, Louisiana, and a bachelor's degree in biology from Arkansas Tech University. Prior to coming to Lane College, Dr. Hampton served in numerous student service capacities at UALR, including Vice Provost for Student Affairs. Before UALR, Dr. Hampton held positions at Texas A&M University, Texas Christian University, and the University of Central Arkansas. In addition to working as a higher education administrator, Dr. Hampton is an ordained elder in full connection of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church, the CME Church. He served 24 years as a pastor in the Arkansas region of the 1st Episcopal District of the CME Church. He and his wife, Susan, are the parents of 3 adult children, Elise, that's me, Crystal, and Logan III. And a little bit about Lane College, where he currently serves as president. Lane College is a private co-educational institution providing liberal arts curriculum and offering baccalaureate degrees in the arts and sciences and associate degrees. Located in Jackson, Tennessee, Lane College is affiliated with the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church and is one of the oldest HBCUs in the nation. Since 1882, committed to educational progress, Lane College strives to transform lives, liberate minds, and celebrate excellence through Christ. The college is accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges. The next voice you will hear is Dr. Hampton. I'm going to send you a text message to cue him to start.
Elise, that was, Ms. Hampton, that was intro. From the time that you texted me that you started to the time that you texted me that you were concluding, or the time for me to start talking. That was quite a time. I trust you did not tell the folks in the room about me forcing you to run cross country or giving you the school date for a club meeting, that kind of thing. I trust it was all nice and nice to you. Nice to you. Thank you for allowing me to use this alternative means of communicating and being with you on this day. I usually don't talk with such a bass voice, but like so many millions of people in the world, I started my career just here very recently, and so I thank you. I don't know how long I have upright, so I'm going to get straight to my notes. I like to begin, and I trust you can hear me. Someone might put that in the chat if you can. I titled this "Faith of Our Foreparents," and as I wrote in the scripture, it's my attempt to listen in the Arkansas slave narratives and to really try to explore the faith of our foreparents in the pre-institutional Black church. We know well the institutional Black church have lots of critiques of it. But we had prior to the pre-institutional Black church, a the church did in fact exist, and we had sheroes and heroes that were a part of that church. And we celebrate today because of that church, because of them. We have been able to survive and thrive as they were able to thrive and survive during the most difficult period in African history in America. For sure, I am not a historian. I am a lay historian, I guess you might say, who bought the slave narratives and have them before me in my home. But I love the institutional Black church. So when asked to present, I was eager to finally have a reason to dive in and start to spend a little more time with the Arkansas slave narratives. I paid particular attention to their discussion on religion and faith and how religion and faith impacted their lives. And in working through this presentation for today, I am attempting to limit my voice and to amplify the voices of those who had firsthand experiences and to the experts. So let us begin. They brought faith with them. And when I say they, I mean our African ancestors. Faith, the Christian faith, Christian church, believe in a higher power, were part of, I don't know if it's a foreign saying, but part of the DNA of the people of African descent, forced into labor to build a country that was not intended for them, but that they would, in fact, make their own. And for the context, I have you know that they brought this faith. They brought it with them. Elise Hampton, in the Genius of Christianity, posited that Africans were charter members of the church which gave birth to Christianity. For the first 300 years after the Pentecost, it was in Africa that Christianity primarily found its shape and early direction, as the people of North Africa, enthusiastically and in large numbers, embraced the Christian faith. And I remind you in the following text that Africans were present on the way up Calvary's Hill. Jesus encountered an African. Mark 15:21. A passerby named Simon, who was from Cyrene, was coming in from the countryside just then, and the soldiers forced him to carry Jesus' cross. Simon was the father of some later characters in the Bible, Alexander and Rufus. Paul wrote in Romans 16:13, greet Rufus, whom the Lord picked out to be his very own, and also his dear mother, who has been a mother to me. Yes, right there in the text, Africans were called on to serve the king. Africans were present in the upper room on the day of Pentecost. Tomorrow, June 5th, 2022, we celebrate Pentecost. Hollywood and others have so whitewashed the Bible that we feel we have to go searching for Africans in the Bible. And they were right there in the text all the time. Acts 2, on the day of Pentecost. You all know this text, you'll read tomorrow when you're in church. On the day of Pentecost, all the believers were meeting together in one place. Suddenly, there was a sound from heaven, like the roaring of a mighty windstorm, and it filled the house where they were sitting. Then what looked like flames or tongues of fire appeared and settled on them. And then let me skip down to verse 6. And when they heard the loud noise, everyone came running, and they were bewildered to hear their own languages being spoken by the believers. They were completely amazed. How can this be, they exclaimed. These people are from Galilee, and yet we hear them speaking in our own native language. And here we are, Parthians, Medes, and Elamites, people from Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus, the province of Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, and the areas of Libya and Cyrene, visitors from Rome, both Jews and converts to Judaism, Cretans and Arabs. Yes, we cannot doubt that, that some of them took the Holy Spirit back with them to their homelands. St. Mark is claimed by the Coptic Christians of Egypt to be the first apostle of Egypt. Christianity arrived in Africa by way of preaching of St. Mark, the gospel writer, in AD 64. What goes on to argue, it is necessary to address the question of racial origins and ethnic identity, because for at least the last 500 years, people of African descent have had their historical identity and collective presence obscured, falsified, and undermined as they have suffered under the heavy burdens of mass enslavement, colonial domination, and more recently, neo-colonial exploitation. People of African descent have been treated as though they have no history worth remembering and no ancestors worth honoring. I'm about to preach myself out of a voice already. History is our witness. For the first 300 years of Christianity, Africans were the leading presence in the church. And African bishops and theologians in Alexandria and Carthage wrote the basic doctrines of our faith, the faith that we practice even today. But the African presence was to be supplanted by European shortly after Constantine took over Christianity for, as you all well know, for political reasons. I trust that he was converted, but there were certainly political motivations in there as well. And by the 5th century, the African wing of Christianity pulled away from Western Christianity due to theological, ecclesiological, and sociological differences. My point here is simply this. Africans brought faith, even Christian faith in some instances, with them. And so as we hear from these persons in the Arkansas slave narratives, we want to hear from their voice, listen in on them telling their story. And so in some instances, I'll read large swaths of their story, because I want you to hear their story. They've got some wonderful stories to tell. Faith and church were regular parts of life for our African ancestors. Let's go to Fayetteville, Arkansas. In Fayetteville, Arkansas, let's listen in and hear from Aunt Aileen. Aunt Aileen shared one of Mr. Park's daughters. Mr. Park was the owner of the forced labor camp. I think you know what I mean. One of Mr. Park's daughters was about 1.5 years older than I was. We had a playhouse back in the fireplace, back of the fireplace chamber. We didn't have many toys. Maybe a doll made of corn cob with a dress made from scraps and a head made from a roll of scraps. We were playing church. Miss Fanny was the preacher and I was the audience. We were singing, "Jesus, my all to heaven is gone." Another a member of that church for 55 years. I've never gotten out publicly, but I even do a little preaching around in the house here. And then I found what I believe to be the birth of the Sunday Soul Food Dinner. Fanny Alexander from Helena, Arkansas. Those of you from the Delta region would not be surprised that the Soul Food Dinner might have started. But Fanny Alexander shared, they would cut whole cakes in half and put them in your pan, then pour the beef stew on top. On Christmas Day, they had hot biscuits. They give them flour and things to make biscuits at home on Sundays. And when they got through eating, they take their plate and say, thank God for what I have received. While many of our African ancestors were taken forcibly from the motherland of civilization, they brought their culture and their faith with them. Enslaved in brutal chattel slavery, our ancestors made something out of nothing. After working from sun to can't see no more, our ancestors took the leftovers, the end pieces, the remnants, and made sumptuous meals. What can you do with the rib of a pig? It doesn't have much meat on it. Throw it away. Well, our ancestors put a rub on it, put it out over a fire, and turned the throwaway into a delicacy that is eaten all across America. And every city in the South claims to have the best rib. What do you do? All you have is flour, sugar, and some butter. It was obvious to our great-great-great-grandmama them. They made tea cakes. We can learn from the contributions, the creativity, the ingenuity of our ancestors. And remember that every time you sit down for Sunday dinner, you are celebrating the faith tradition of Africans in America. Africans brought over black-eyed peas, kidney red bean, lima bean, watermelon, rice, sorghum syrup. They brought all of this with them from Africa to America. Cornbread, crackling cornbread, prepared by African slaves with similar syrup. African millet bread. Africans brought deep frying to America. Did you hear me? Africans brought deep frying to America. Every time you eat fried chicken, fried fish, you celebrate and pay homage to African history and African culture and African people in America. The first successful cultivation of rice in the New World was accomplished in South Carolina, Seattle, by an African woman who later showed her owner how to cultivate rice. Each time, my colleagues, each time that we sit to a southern meal, and I say southern because much of our culture has been co-opted, we are celebrating, we are remembering, we are paying tribute to our African ancestors. And I trust, like Fanny Alexander's folks in Helena, that when you sit down to eat, you will say, thank God for what I received. All right, let's go back to the slave narrative. Among the forced laborers, among the forced laborers in these United States of America, we find people of great faith. Though this faith is complicated and nuanced, let's make no mistake about it, it's complicated, it's nuanced. In the next account, we hear the fullness of the faith experience. In fact, I was tempted to just spend the entire presentation dealing with Miss Lucretia Alexander. Because I think her story gives us the significance and shots of what our ancestors would do and what their faith is doing as well. Let me get out of the way and not be allowed her to speak to you. Mrs. Lucretia Alexander of 1708 High Street in Little Rock, Arkansas. She shared, I've been married 3 times, and my last name was Lucretia Alexander. I was 12 years old when the war began. I got religion in 1865. I was baptized 73 years ago this August. You see, I took care of myself when I was young and tried to do right. The Lord has helped me too. My mother was treated well in slavery time. My father was sold 5 times. Wouldn't take nothing. So they sold him. They beat him and knocked him out. They put him on the block and they sold him about beating up his master. Miss Alexander's father shares with us, or her description of her father really begins to show us how complicated this thing called faith was for our African ancestors. You'll hear him come back in the story in just a moment. I remember one time, back to Miss Alexander shares with me, I remember one time they caught a man named George Tennyson. They put the dogs on him, and they bit him and tore all his clothes off him. Then they put him in stocks. The stocks was a big piece of timber with hinges on it. It had a hole in it for your head. They would lift it up and put your head in it. There were holes in it for your head, hand, and feet in it. Then they would shut it, and they would lay that whip on you, and you couldn't do nothing but wiggle and holler. Pray, Master, pray. But when they let that man out, he run away again. Miss Alexander shared, they would make the slaves work till 12 o'clock on Sunday, and then they would let them go to church. The first time I was sprinkled, a white preacher did. The preacher would preach to the white folks in the forenoon and to the colored folks in the evening. The white folks had them hiding. One man used to hold the slaves so late that they had to go to church dirty from their work. They would be sweating and smelling. So the preacher rebuked him about it. That was old man Bill Rose. The niggers didn't go to the church building. The preacher came and preached to them in the morning. He just said, serve your master. Don't steal your master's turkey. Don't steal your master's chicken. Don't steal your master's hogs. Don't steal your master's meat. Do whatsoever your master tells you to do. Same old thing all the time. Mrs. Alexander's faith, I would argue, was more shaped by her father than by the white preacher. Remember, her father was the same man who ran away 5 times, who was beaten for doing so, and who put a beat down on his master. Miss Alexander shared, my father would have church in the dwelling houses, and they had to whisper. My mother was dead, and I want a real meeting with a real preacher. It would have to be during the weeknights. You couldn't tell the Baptists and Methodists then. They were all Christians. I never saw them turn nobody down at the community. But I've heard of it. I never saw them turn no pots down either. But I heard of it. They used to sing their songs in a whisper and pray in a whisper. That was a prayer meeting from house to house, once or twice a week. That's where our faith was shaped. Some of you also may be, in this next story that she tells, some of you may see yourself, or you may see some people in your church, in your community, or your family. I told you we could stay with her all the time. Mrs. Alexander reports, old Phipps. Now Phipps was a mean overseer that she had at one point. She said, old Phipps whipped me once. He aimed to kill me, but I got loose. He whipped me about a colored girl of his that he had by a colored woman. Phipps went with a colored woman before he married his wife. He had a girl named Martha Ann Phipps. I beat Martha about a pair of stockings. My mistress bought me a pair of stockings from the store. You see, they used to knit stockings. I wore the stockings once, and then I washed them and put them on the fence to dry. Martha stole them and put them on. I beat her and took them off her. She ran and told her father, and he ran me home. He couldn't catch me. He told me he'd get me. I didn't run to my father. I ran to my mistress. And he knew he better do nothing then. He said, I'll get you, you little old black nothing. Here's her faith. This is her faith here. Miss Alexander Rice. One old lady named Emily Mortier run in and held my mother once for Phipps to whip her. And my mother was down with consumption too. I aimed to get Phipps. I aimed to get old Phipps for that. But then I got religion, and I couldn't do it. Religion makes you forget a heap of things. Susan Reed, my old mistress, bought my father and paid $1,500 for him. And she ain't never seen it. Advertising, he had run away so much that they had to advertise and sell it. He would never run away from Miss Susan. She was too good to him. Her husband, Reed, was called a nigger spoiler. My father was an old man when Phipps was an overseer and wasn't able to fight much then. All right, now, got a story. Now we're going to shout a little bit. As she continues to tell her story. One time I saw the Yankees. They had on blue uniforms and was on cold black horses. I heard them tell the slaves they were free. A man named Captain Burgess, who had his arm off at the elbow, called for the 3 nearby plantations to meet at our place. Then he got up on a platform with another man beside him and declared peace and freedom. He pointed to a colored man and yelled, "You are free as I am." Old colored folks, old as I am now, that was on sticks throw them sticks away and shouted. Imagine that Mrs. Alexander's father, who lived to 1881, was one of those old folks who celebrated on that day. She concludes, I am my mother's seventh child. I know who do, and I don't believe in them. But a seventh child can more or less tell you things that are a long way off. If you want to beat the devil, you got to do right. God got to be in the plan. I try to do right. I am not perfect, but I do the best I can. I ain't got no bottom teeth, but my top ones are good. I have a few bottom ones. The law's keeping me here for something. Mrs. Alexander and her father, whose name was John Beasley, represented the power of faith to survive and overcome chattel slavery. The power of faith to endure violence and abuse. The power of faith to face oppression and racism. The power of the faith to find and experience, even against the odds, when it would appear all was lost, to experience justice, redemption, joy, and freedom. I got a lot I want to say, but I want to stay with these. I want to stay with the voices of our ancestors. While Mrs. Alexander did not believe in no hoodoo, her sister and brother, forced laborers, believed in the spirit and spirits. Aunt Adeline from Fayetteville, Arkansas, shared, my mother seemed to have a gift of storytelling and telling fortunes. She had a brass ring about the size of a dollar with a hand-woven knotted string that she used. I remember that she told many of the young people in the neighborhood many strange things. They would come to her with their premonitions. Rose Hathaway from Pine Bluff, Arkansas, she shared, I've been farming till I got this age. After I married, I went to farm. I birthed 14 head of children by that one man. 14 head by that one man. Stayed on and took care of them till I got them up some size too. I know they said it was bad luck to bring a hoe or an axe in the house on your shoulder. I heard old folks tell that, sure it is. And I was told that on Christmas night, the cows get down on their knees and give thanks to the Lord. Maddie Aldridge of Hazen, Arkansas, she shared, they was glad when freedom declared. They said they was hard on them, whooped them. Paul was killed in Crittenden County in Arkansas. He was clearing new ground. Storm came up and a limb hit. It killed him. Grandma and mom say if they build a house, you want to put all the windows in that you're ever going to need or want. It's bad luck to cut in and put in another window. It's a sign of death. I ain't got no business telling you about that. White folks don't believe in science. These seasoned and serious people of faith believe in an almighty God. But they also believe in science, and superstitions, and spirits. Their faith was shaped by white preachers and black preachers in the pre-institutional church. Moses Ransom, Elder Raymond, Arkansas shared, I went to church too. We did not have a church house. We used a rush arbor for service for a long time. In the winter, we built a big fire in the middle, and we sat out all around the fire on small logs. Later, they built a log church, so we had service there for years. Andrea Butler, in her chapter on the church in the 1619 project, if I want to talk just a little bit about the Black church, she reflects that the church has been once the most prominent instrument of liberation within the African American community, and the foremost conservative custodian of an uncritical evangelical piety that undermines the aims of liberation. We have a complex story. Again, in contemporary politics, African American relationship to the institutional Black church might be described, if I might use some of the Hollywood language, the complicated entanglement. The church, a refuge, housed the movements of our people, served as the place where the people were educated, and ultimately was the source of the people's liberation from sin and oppression within and without the community. But it goes on to say the Black church has not only been a forum for righteous anger forged out of slavery, it was also a place of protection and practicality. For many decades, it was one of the few places Black people could gather for educational purposes, to arrange mutual aid groups, or to form political organizations. There were few formal Black churches in the antebellum period. The enslaved could gather out in outdoor spaces, and the Black preacher, an interpreter of Christianity, that diverged from the one offered by white churches. Seven, slaves, which said that, which diverged from the white church, which said that slaves ought to be obedient to their master. The Black church and the Black preacher and the emerging tradition of the Black spirituals contributed to a different understanding of the gospel, and one that encouraged and supported along with the freedom. Welchel quotes, the Black church and the Black preacher are the only institution and profession which started in the African past, survived slavery, and continues to the present time. The first person to address the restoration of the African American identity was the Black preacher. Black preachers would hold clandestine worship services by announcing to their gullible Blacks that it was time to spin away to Jesus. It was an announcement that a secret religious meeting would be held at night. They formed the Bush Harbor Church. Well, to say Bush Harbor, I think we're accustomed, or I'm accustomed to saying here in Brush Harbor. They formed the Bush Harbor Church, the invisible institution, away from the prying eyes of the slave holders and overseers. The Bush Harbors were churches without law, sparkling the same life. These churches had no membership rolls, and there was never a need to pass an election plate, since there was no money to be collected. The Bush Harbor parishioners could look up and study astronomy. The Bush Harbor Church was the place where the people could gather to inspire and motivate the people to take courage, to believe in themselves as a community, as God's people, as Black people. No doubt we cannot have an honest discussion about the church without really talking about both the warts and the ribbons. And I've got one last one on there. The critique of the church that Karl Marx offered is troubling. But I think think we even deal with those troubling things. Marx, a German philosopher, called religion the opium of the people. In that religion was not only used by those in power to oppress, but it also made the oppressed feel better about their condition. The preaching by white preachers achieved its goal to make forced laborers obedient, compliant, good workers, and to make them feel better about being in forced labor. One might think of its effect as the opiatization of the Christian faith. Listen to these forced laborers. Bob Benford, Final of Arkansas, shared, "My old master was good to me. Yes, ma'am, they treated us right. We didn't have to worry about paying the doctor and had plenty to eat. Old mistress, just as good as she could be. She'd come out to the quarters to see how we get along. I'd be so glad when Christmas comes. We'd have a hog killing, and I'd get the ladders and blow them up to make noise. Yes, lady, we had a time. When the war was over, I recollect they said we was free, but I didn't know what they meant. I was always free." And certainly there are others that are in my notes, but I see my time is having been well spent. And I want to listen in on a critique of this church and this strong review of the church that would produce such a faith as we just heard, that was offered by Frederick Douglass. And I'll conclude here. Frederick Douglass writes, "I find since reading over the foregoing narrative that I have in several instances spoken in such a way, in such a tone and manner, respecting religion, as may possibly lead those unacquainted with my religious views to suppose me an opponent of all religion. To remove the liability of such misapprehension, I deem it proper to append the following brief explanation. What I have said respecting and against religion, I mean strictly to apply to the slave-holding region of this land, and with no possible reference to Christianity proper. For between the Christianity of this land and the Christianity of Christ, I recognize the widest possible difference, so wide that to receive the one as good, pure, and holy is a necessity to reject the other as bad, corrupt, and wicked. To be the friend of one is a necessity to be the enemy of the other. I love the pure, peaceable, and impartial Christianity of Christ. I therefore hate the corrupt, slave-holding, women with cradle plunder, partial and hypocritical Christianity of this land. Indeed, I can see no reason but the most deceitful one for calling the religion of this land Christianity. I look upon it as the climax of all misnomers, the boldest of all frauds, the grossest of all liars. I am filled with unutterable loathing when I contemplate the religious pomp and show together the horrible inconsistencies everywhere around me. We have men stealers for ministers, women whippers for missionaries, cradle plunderers for church members. The man who wields the blood-clotted cowskin during the week fills the pulpit on Sunday and claims to be minister of the meek and lowly Jesus. The man who robs me of my earnings at the end of each week meets me at the class dinner on Sunday morning to show me the way of life and the path of salvation. He who sells my sister for purposes of prostitution stands forth as the pious advocate of purity. He who claims it is a religious duty to
to read the Bible denied you the right of learning to read the name of God who made you. He who is religious, the religious advocate of marriage, robs wholly of the sacred influence and leads them to the ravages of wholesome pollution. The warm defender of the sacredness of the family relation is the same as scatters whole families, sundering families and wives, parents and children, sisters and brothers, leaving the hut vacant and the heart desolate. We see the thief preaching against theft, the adulterer against adultery. We have men sold to build churches, women sold to support the gospel, babies sold to purchase Bible for the poor people, all for the glory of God and the good of souls. The slave auctioners beg, and the church-going bells chime in with each other. The bitter cries of the heartbroken slave are drowned in the religious shouts of his pious master. I'll stop there and entertain any questions.
I just want to ask, where was that excerpt taken from by the president?
Yes, the quote is at the end of Frederick Douglass's narrative. Frederick Douglass in the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. And so, he writes the narrative. And then at the end, he writes it's more or less an appendix that he writes the statement that he wanted to clarify.
With prior speaker on A&E, what is the difference between the African and why is it?
What's the difference between the A&E church and the CME church? The A and the C? In terms of understanding of Christ, zero difference. In terms of understanding in terms of doctrine, very, very minor differences between. Now, there are some differences in politics and organization structure. And then, of course, there's a difference in history. I ran out of time, but I heard the previous speaker mention Richard Allen. I wanted to, and I have in my notes to share the story of Richard Allen when he observed his colleagues being really literally Reverend Alfred Jones being literally pulled up off his knees in the church where he was praying because the white folks said he could not pray there, and thus was a bit of a catalyst for the founding of the institutional black church in America. So I'd say that history is something that we definitely want to pay attention to. So there was this disruption that was forced upon the people. If I had time to get to the next point, the point I would have made was that the African American church was established out of necessity. And I would have made an argument as to why it was established out of necessity, but my voice in both times were not holding up. Now, the CME church, which I am a member, is we would argue that we were regularly founded historically. So we were founded by along with 41 former fourth laborers and two bishops from the Methodist Church South. can trace our lineage all the way back to John Wesley, all the way back to the Peter, to the Apostle Peter. We would say we were way on this. Now, talking about a complicated conversation. The way the early CME church was treated by African Methodist Episcopal and by African Methodist Episcopal Zion, that's a whole conversation in itself that needs that could take its own time. I mean, it's it's such that I don't even want to start. And I say the way but the relationship between those three churches. And a few years back, we contemplated African American, the African Methodist Episcopal, the African Methodist Episcopal Zion, and the Christian Methodist Episcopal. We contemplated merging the three churches. I myself support.
I just have one last question.
I support a merger.
We are aware on the citation we had confidential transparency. What do you propose for reason? Most Africans in America shun the indigenous tradition of African land, and how do you propose to define those spiritual practices humbly and respectfully in the West in the 1619 Project that will assist in that?
Can you give me that question?
Yeah.
Slowly.
What do you propose the reason most Africans in America shun the indigenous tradition? Yes. Shun the indigenous tradition of African land.
Well, you may be hearing the siren from the tornado siren, the weather warning siren, which is just right outside of my house.
Of African land, and how do you propose we reclaim those spiritual practices humbly and respectfully, practices humbly and respectfully in the West, and do you think that 1965 will assist?
Oh, wow, this is a big question. So there's, in this question, and I hope you can hear me despite my safety sound. I maintain that we have brought the indigenous traditions forward. We still maintain those traditions. So, for example, everything was like the double negative. The way, when we speak colloquially, I said, can't nobody, do me like Jesus. The double negative, we bringing that tradition forward. The rhythm that we experience in an African American worship experience. I think we brought that tradition with us. I even believe we brought the tradition of ancestor. I don't want to go so far as say ancestor worship, but we get pretty close to it. I know we go to CV church. you start messing with mama, big mama, Papa's pew, you will find that you just made a big mistake. I think we bring that forward in that we continue to be a very spiritual people. I think some of what we even brought forward has been co-opted by others. I think you look at some of the TV ministers. I think they would behave and present themselves in such a way as black folks have been. I mean, we've been laying hands on the other folks and folks who passing out the church. I mean, even in the Baptist church, I mean, folks are shouting back out, you know. So I might, the premise of the question, I might challenge, I might say, we have brought the traditions forward with us. Now, do we have more that we can learn? Oh, yes. And so I think we do continue to build on those relationships. I'm just amazed, one of my good friends, Lawson J, who's running the bishop in our church, is the digital bishop from Africa. From time to time we talk, and he'll talk about one of their prayer services, and talk about, and he'll say they pray all night. And I'm like, you did what? And you know, I've been a proper city preacher for most of my ministry. So, you know, we start on time and we end on time. And so that's praying all night. So there are some things that we might, I think that we still can continue to learn. So I don't want to dismiss the question. I just want to say, I want to enhance the question. Well, as I said to my colleagues on campus, I want to be part of the question to say, I think we have, but I think there is more to learn, and I think we've got to continue to keep building a relationship with our brothers and sisters from the motherland. Now, the 1619 project. I'm part of the 1619 project because I'm aggravated and I'm educated that there are those in our community who would suggest that we cannot have discussions that make us uncomfortable. I mean, just that simple. That folks that would say we cannot have a conversation that makes us uncomfortable. And the 1619 project, I mean, yes, it will make you uncomfortable, you know, in reading through it and thinking of what's next. My hope is that we can get through this uber politicized period, and at some point we begin to have real conversations again about how we as Americans, how we move forward. I mean, for the last several years, I mean, it's just been, the conversations have been difficult to have. I mean, I thought of the election of President Barack Hussein Obama as the most, as a sign of the most progressive movement in America, that America is moving forward. Where I've had some good friends, people, or I might say good colleagues, I don't know how close we work, but, you know, but some very close colleagues who witnessed that as the greatest threat to America. That just blew my mind. It's like, that guy, Barack Obama, the one with the white woman in the White House, I mean, really? And what did Ivy schools? You know, who doesn't live in the hood? I mean, that got crazy. Okay. But then, you know, and it just kind of works again, even with the election of President Trump. I mean, it's just, in my mind, it's kind of this response. And I mean, we just got into these camps now where we just decide that we don't want to talk to each other. When we share, I mean, we share 99.99 whatever percent similarities. That was way too long.
I would like to ask Dr. Hampton if there's a connection that he works with the Alex Haley Foundation that's over in close to Jackson, and if there's a relationship that they have developed with him, because Dr. Alex Haley had so much information that is so connected, going back to his Mandingo tribe in Africa, and listening to that whole documentary is fabulous. I just love it. If he doesn't have a connection, I would love to come to Lane College BHCA Foundation.
Foundation that is over near Jackson. The town is led by brain, but then there's a connection too with the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, where his father was a professor at UAPB. But it being so close to Jackson, I just wonder if they could have a relationship with that foundation over in the Jackson area.
Yes, I mean, we can't have, I mean, we have, yes, that is in Henning, you're talking about Henning, Tennessee. Yes, I mean, I think we get to celebrate every one of Alex Haley's birthdays. In fact, this past year, I took my architectural scholars and the choir to celebrate his 100th birthday. If you hear me speak, I'm going to say, if there was no Lane College, there would be no Alex Haley. Because his parents met here on campus and got married, and then subsequently produced Alex Haley. So I take full credit. And I mean, it's really, I mean, his history is linked to our former Senator Lamar Alexander. There wasn't a time that I went to advocate for something for Lane College with Senator Alexander that he did not tell me some Haley story related to Lane College. Yeah, so we do have a relationship. We do have a relationship, and we continue to foster that relationship with the folks over in here. And if you're not getting, you should go. It's worth the day trip. You should travel up to Henny. Nice, polite visit. And I mean, and when you go through his home, the delightful thing about going through his home is that Alex Haley himself gives you the tour. So it's delightful.
Is that our final question? Okay, I'm going to send you a goodbye message.
Okay, so I see you. Thank you for speaking with us this morning. So let me just say again, thank you all for allowing me this alternative means of presenting. You know why my voice was as it was, I think, and I want to thank you all for giving me a reason to not feel sorry for myself and to engage in conversation with you all this morning. I thank you. Thank you, Ms. T. I'm Mr. Farland.